Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Big welcome to all the new subscribers to the main site. It's great to have you there. Seems to be a bit of a rush going on at the moment, with lots of new members joining, making their way into the forum as well, and sort of being welcomed by the group. So it's great to have you there. If you remember, if you're not in the forum, make your way over to the forum. I think about 99% of you do these days, but so it's great to have you there. Lovely show for you lined up today. We've got a little bit on the transall. Don't ask, it's getting worse. Okay, we've got a bit of a special on black paints. I'm going to be having a look at this set. This is the Lifecolor paints, which have been sent to us. So I'm going to put these on test. Going to do this new thing, which will be probably only get back once a month. What I'm going to do is this little section called on test. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've put it up against Tamiya paints, guns paints, things like that, and just to see really how they cope in an identical test between them all. So the plan is, the next time I do it, I'm going to do it on glue. So we're going to do it on things like Gunzo glues, along with Tamiyas, along with hot welds, and things like that. So we're going to line them all up and do an identical thing and see which one comes out best. As you know, totally impartial here. Nobody sponsors us, nobody pays for us, and all the rest of it. So I'll let you know exactly how it goes about with that one. We've got lots to talk about this week with the SIGs, the group builds, and everything else, because we've got new things started. We've got the Shelf of Doom, which is basically for all those stalled projects, which I have got myself. We have I don't know how many of you remember, but back in the day we did news show. I was doing one, and every week I do a little bit on the Airwolf build. So this will be starting next week's show. Will be including the Airwolf. So this is my entry back into it. It's about 6 months ago we started that on the news show. So if you want to see how we started off that build, go back about 6 months and throw on the news show from that. So we're going to go completely through those. So anyway, to start off with, this is all about the black paint. So we say we're talking Lifecolor, everything else, and this is how we got on. Okay, so black paint, you know, nobody really gets excited about black paint, tends to do what it does. Now, personally, I have my favourites. Tamiya XF1 flat black. Now I've used this since I switched over to acrylics. It's my mainstay of all my brush painting, and certainly my airbrush painting as well. I love the stuff. It's pretty forgiving, everything else like that. It gives a nice sort of flatness to it and everything else, so I've been alright with that. On the other option, if I want something a little bit more glossy, we've got the X18, which is basically their semi-gloss or satin finish black. Now I don't use their gloss blacks and things like that. I must admit I tend to use more satin based ones and flats, and if I want a gloss, I'll put a gloss coat over the top of those. That said, over recent months, or for the last year, I also quite like, which is H77, which is Tire Black from the Guns range. Now this is obviously their acrylic one, but it's more of a synthetic type paint, but it's got that nice rubbery look to it. It's got that sort of sheen that rubber has and everything else. Again, great paint to use, very brushable and everything else like that. Back in the day when I very first started off, I used to use Valero Model Air, because obviously it's straight from the bottle, straight into your airbrush and everywhere you went like that. So I used to use their black and their grey black colours as well. I don't tend to use those as much anymore because I prefer using these guys and everything else like that. But these were readily available in local stores around me. That's why I used to use this stuff. Again, nothing wrong with it, no personal thing against it. It's just I do tend to prefer using those. That said, got hold of a set of these. Now these are the Lifecolor paints. Haven't really spoken about Lifecolor paints before, never really used them to be honest, and everything else like that. As you probably know, as you can see up here, I do have everybody else's paint, and I tend to use them for what I need. So for instance, if I just wheel you around a bit, you might be able to see a little bit of my paint rack here. Now my paint rack goes up again, all right, and then down here, as I said, we've got all the various colours. So as you can see in here, we tend to have the Guns range, and then runs down this second shelf down here. Over here we've got my metallics. Now my metallics, I've got my alclads up here. When I'm doing anything I want to have a real metal finish, I think it's pretty hard to beat alclads. If you want an overall type of metal finish, I'll use the alclads. I've got down here, these are the Model Master. These are the buffable ones, which are great if you want to have quite a smaller part but make it look real metal. Recently we used these on burner cans, things like that. Wouldn't use it probably so much on overall aircraft, or certainly nothing in 1/32, but I would certainly use it for smaller parts, things like that, shall we say. Further down here we've got the Tamiya range, as we said before. I grew up on these, as I said, when I first started over, things like that. Really like those, very easy forgiving, everything else. And then further down here we've got the extra acrylics range, and then also I've got some of the actual the old-fashioned model polyscale stuff for my Russian colours, because Russian colours, I think they're fine for it. So really I don't keep a particular paint for a thing. And sorry, right at the top, which you can't see, is my Valero range right up there. Okay, but I tend to think if I've got a colour that I really like, for instance, I've got to find it now. There is a range in the Valero colour which is absolutely lovely for British. I've got to try and find it now. My range, which I won't be able to find it just off the top of the cuff here, which is always the way, which is great because it's the barley grey colour that Valero do. And I can't think of the code off the top of my head for it, unfortunately. Medium sea grey, where's barley grey? I'm sure it's got a 7 in it, always the way. But anyway, it's a lovely barley grey colour, and if you're using it on things like Typhoons and aircraft like that, it's absolutely brilliant. It's a real modern colour, and I think the Model Air colour is the best available of it, so I certainly wouldn't use anybody else's one for it. Other things I do like is obviously, especially, is the Guns range. We used them quite recently, and that was for doing the Sufa Israeli defence colours. I think the Guns colours are the best you're going to find for that. Really, really hard push to find a colour that's going to, you know, beat that one. Okay, now, sorry, just playing with the camera a little bit here. So that's how it works. And then obviously you get other colours, certainly for Japanese colours, things like that, Tamiya, you know, so I'll probably use those. So it's not like I keep one for everything, okay? And that's what I'm saying about. So that's why I can tend to keep different ranges. I know a lot of people just keep a range of paint and they'll mix and make colours up of how they need it and everything else like that. So anyway, I'm slightly waffling on about different paint choices and everything else, but there we go. So anyway, got a set of these in. These are blacks. So, you know, for me, who's gone from, you know, either one type of black, two types of black, to a set of different shades of, you tend to think, right, okay, so what you're actually going to get. So I haven't even opened these before, so this is all new to me. So just get in here. So actually what you get in the box is like this. So actually what we have here, we can get them out, we have dirty black, so then we've got the vulcanized rubber, okay, tire black, okay, worn black, deep cockpit black, I presume, they just call it deep cockpit, but I presume there is, okay, and burned black. So there are colours just down here. So if we just move the camera down a touch, okay, not too much, you're going to see all my rubbish. Okay, so what we have here is a range of colours to use. So what I thought I would do is grab a sheet of styrene sheet like this, and we're just going to see how it performs with everybody else's in a real time and a real life sort of experiment here. So what I've got here is a little bit of 40mm Tamiya tape, and we all wish Tamiya would release the 40mm Tamiya tape holder for this, and you wouldn't have to keep tearing it to get it off. Okay, so what I thought we'd do, we just stick that down there so we know what we've got. I'll grab my pen. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to put in the middle here, we're going to have, get the pen to work, XF1. Okay, that's going to be in here. Okay, we're going to put in H77 is going to go in there. Okay, we're not going to worry about the Valero colour, to be honest, alright? And then what we're going to do, we're going to pop these in as well. So if we make up some type of bar area here, we can put in, this is going to be the dirty black. We'll go there. Then we're going to have the tyre black. I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll put the tyre black next to Guns' version of tyre black. And we're going to have tyre black. Okay, we're going to have the vulcanized rubber just down in here. Okay, we'll have worn black. What I'll do is I'll take stills of this anyway and post it up so you can see it. Burned rubber we'll have out the way. pen would work. Rubber, and last we've got deep cockpit. Just like that. Okay, now as I said, I haven't used these colours before. Alright, so what we're going to do now, we're just going to pop a bit of the old paper down, just so we don't spray my entire bench in black. And what we're going to do, we're going to lay down the paint. First of all, we can see obviously how it sprays and everything else like that. And then secondly, we can have a go using the paints to see how they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off an area as we go through. Is the plan here. So what we'll do is we're just going to grab this and we're going to spray this straight down onto neat. Get this off. Onto neat. Let me just sneak this. Onto neat styrene sheet. So what I'm going to do, just to make it a little bit fairer, I'm just going to grab a little bit of airbrush cleaner, just down on there like that. And what that'll do is obviously just clean the surface of any gummy fingerprint, so it's all literally on an even test. Okay, so there's no faking or trickery or anything else going on here, so it's all exactly the same. Okay, pull it off. So then what we'll do, we're going to come down here and we're just going to mark this off. So this first one will be dirty black. Okay, let's pop that down. Now you're all still with me on this, what we're up to. Okay, so this is going to be dirty black. Now for this, to give it its best possible chance of everyone, I'm going to be using everybody's own thinners. So we've got, this is Lifecolor's own thinners for this. So give their paints a bit of a shake up. Okay, so we just make sure airbrush is fine. Just pop a tiny bit of cleaner through. Just blow that out of the way. Okay. Right, so we're going to take some first use of Lifecolor. So looking at it, it does look very grey-like rather than black-like. So for this, all we're going to do is just take, making sure the brush is clear. Okay, so we're just going to take a bit of a brush full into the colour cup, and we're going to try and spray it neat to start with down this bottom edge. Okay, make sure we're all totally dry. So we just check our flow. Okay, for boffins out there, we're spraying this at about 30 psi. Okay, and it's quite spitty as it's coming out. This is just a neat test, but it's got good coverage, but it is spitting quite a bit. Okay, so what we'll do is we're just going to put some more in. Okay, and then we'll take a pipette, drop of the thinners in it, about a 50-50 mix. Good old mix in the colour cup, just like that. Just mix it up to the top. Okay, blow through that thicker stuff to start with. Okay, and then we're just going to spray the second in. It's a lot neater. Obviously the coverage is a lot harder to do. A little bit wet, so we just cut to air, as in no paint coming through, just to dry this down. So we'll just dry that back. Right, we'll let that dry off, and what I'm going to do is exactly the same for the other colours. I'm going to work my way across, all right the way through. And what I'll do is I'll come back to you when I spray neat and everything else, the Tamiya paints and the guns one, so you can see how they go on as well. So I'll just work my way through these. Okay, so we're about halfway through, and we've got a bit of a problem because I'll just undo this. I'll tidy this all up for the reveal at the end if you like. But the problem I have is that you can probably see here, we've done all the colours we were along. Okay, we've got the two in the middle which are going to be Tamiya and guns, and we've got the burned one over here. Now the burned one I did second because I was going to do them out and come inwards, and it's still wet. All the others have dried, apart from this is actually still wet, and I keep trying to dry it off with the airbrush as well. But if you get too close, it's a very, very thin colour. So obviously it hasn't got a particularly high pigment count in there, so the coverage is pretty crap. And the other thing I did was I was blowing it, there's some type of fleck in the paintwork, and it all came off. So I'm being very, very delicate with this burned rubber colour. The other colours have all gone down pretty well, as you'll be able to see when we get the close-ups in a moment. Having to keep dry this down is a real pain. It's actually drying off quite nicely now, but to put this into perspective, I've been doing this about half an hour, and it's still wet, where all the other ones I've been able to mask over the top of them as well quite successfully, obviously taking a bit of precautions, you know, getting a bit of lint onto the actual thing itself. So there we go, that's that one done. Okay, so don't forget this now. So the only ones we've got left here in the middle is going to be the tyre black colour. So what we'll do is this is their tyre black versus going to be the guns one. So we'll just mask this in here, and then in here as well. So what we're doing, we are putting this sort of real life testing. Okay, so sorry, made that a little bit wrong. We need to come down a little bit further. So we're masking over it at the same time we're brush painting it as well, and all the different things, just as you would probably get in real life if we were painting. So bring this down a bit. So this colour here is the tyre black. Which one's that? Burn Dirty Tyre Black, which is this one here. So what I've been doing with all of them as we've been going along, giving them a good old mix like this, and then what I do, taking from the top of the colour cap, as I've done with all the others, and then all we're doing is brush painting the top. And what will happen is, if it all works well, it all gets two coats, and then we can see exactly how we're working. So once we've done that, we come along and we take 3 big dollops from the brush, just down here, pull that in, and then we blow that through. So we just check our flow, and then all we do halfway up, we're just lightly putting down a base coat so it's got something to grip to, and then we go over, cut into air just to dry it down so it's got something to grab onto. So to say, this is spraying neat, this is just sort of the neat test. And I'm treating them all exactly the same way, and they're getting about the same amount of paint coverage as well. They're getting about half each. Cut into air, we'll just dry that down. Okay, then when I've got the same amount of paint in the colour cap as I can see here, what we do, we add 1/2 ml of thinners to that, which is basically turns it into a 50-50 mix. Give it a good old mix up in the colour cup. And then we come along and just, same thing again, a light coat down first and then off. The only thing I will say, spraying these paints, to be honest, I've had a go with Lifecolor paints before and I never really got on with them. My main problem was with them, one is they tend to be like emulsion paint. You get flecks and it's just spraying. You can actually hear here on the airbrush, it gets stuck and then spits a bit out and all the rest of it. The other thing as well we've got here, you tend to get as if it's got like either a neat piece of paint in there or a neat piece of thinner. it doesn't tend to go in very well. It doesn't seem to mix easily, shall we say. Now this could be just what the paint is like, but as I said, I try and keep all paints equal. So all I'm doing here is building up colour. When it looks a little bit wet, drying it down so it's got something to grip onto so we don't get any spillage. Okay, but what I just tend to find is it's a little bit gritty and everything else. Now, you know, you could say it's the way I've mixed the paint. It could be that obviously I haven't mixed them enough, the thinners, things like that. I know what you're saying, but I have found that as I've been doing this with all of them, this is a good example. This one isn't doing it half as much as some of the others are. So you can't, you know, have a go at me saying, oh, it's the way you're using it, because this one, for instance, is going down very nicely. Where the other one a minute ago was a complete nightmare. It was spitting and horrible and all the rest of it. So it's not the way I'm mixing it, it's not the way I'm the airbrush, it's nothing like that, because they're all on the even here. Okay, it's just that some of them tend to be a little bit more, I don't know, aggressive. There we go, that's that colour cut full, so we just dry that down. Okay, so that is the last of the Lifecolor paints spraying there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is exactly the same with what I usually use, which obviously would be Tamiya and guns in this case. Let's spray all that down. Poor old compressor's having a hard time of it today. So what we'll do now, we'll just very carefully unmask what we've got. Okay, and we'll mask this up to the, I think the best way of doing it, we're trying to keep these as dry as possible. I'm trying to give everything a really fair chance here, okay? So just lightly unmask that. Okay, so if we do we'll go for XF1 first. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll get rid of that. There's the cap. Quite handy how all the caps fit each other, which is always quite nice. Okay, they're all getting a similar type of mix as well. Let me just make sure I've got some paint in here before we throw it around. Here we go, just about. This one, just need to clean the brush. As I say, we've done this with all of them. Okay, now to be honest, what I'll do is, to keep this totally fair, I will use a new, a new black, brand new, as if it's the same, because the tyre paint is a brand new one, the guns one. So we just happen to have a new one here. Alright, so same thing again, it will get the same shake exactly as the others have. In fact, this one's been sitting in my drawer now for the last couple of months, so it's probably not going to be the same. So same thing again, we'll just take some black off of the top. We need a bit more because it doesn't hold quite the same up the top there. Okay, then we'll take 3 dots down the end. Okay, so then same thing again, we'll just spray this down. Be a little bit careful with it because the okay, then we'll just take thinners. Exactly same again. Just blow that through. You can probably hear the change. So we go over. Looking wet, so we just cut to air to dry down. So we just dry it off. There we go. Just dry that down. Okay. So just the same, just give this a quick clean. Now I haven't actually got any Guns thinners because I don't use it. I just tend to use the Tamiya thinners. Quick clean in the colour cup, which is what I didn't do with the Tamiya stuff. Should have done. Okay, so if we can find it, there it is. Let's move all these out of the way. I'm just going to dry off the brush painted one at the top. It's still a bit wet up there. Okay, so same again. So exactly the same we've done for the others. We'll take a bit out here. A bit more. It doesn't fit particularly well. Okay. Okay, 3 big dollops in. Same again, it's on a flow. Now the tape's a bit naff and not sticking now, so we just have to be a bit of a blended edge on there. So this is the H77, which is the Gunzo tyre paint. Now their paints tend to be a little bit more synthetic. And like now, this has covered this already, and I haven't had to cut to air once to get us to the same point as we had before. So it's a lot better coverage than anybody else's. We'll just cut to air, dry that back. The thing with it as well is that the gun stuff tends to take a little bit longer to dry. So whereas the Tamiya stuff and these others, they feel totally dry, and they probably are, this tends to have that eggshell effect where it's dry on the surface to touch, but if you hold it you'll leave a fingerprint because you'll melt a fingerprint back into it. So as we said before, we're lacking in Guns thinners, so we're having to improvise with Tamiya, although I've always used Tamiya thinners on this and I don't have a problem with it at all. It's never failed me yet. Okay, so same thing again. But you can probably hear you don't get any spitting or coughing, as I call it, as the airbrush struggles to get the larger particles out. It does tend to give a very nice smooth paint finish. Looking wet, so we'll cut to air. But say the coverage of the Guns paints is sort of, I've always said, is fantastic. It covers a lot better than Tamiya or anybody else's, but it's more chemically. It acts more like an enamel paint. Like, to be honest, that would do it, and I've still got almost exactly what I started with. It's had a quick pass, but we'll build it up and use it up anyway. But you can probably hear, you just don't get that spitting and coughing and, you know, general lumps and bumps, and it looks extremely smooth. So we just dry that down as well. The great thing as well is that as we've done this test, it's unprimed surface, it doesn't have a problem. It will cover anything. And you can brush paint it as well, which is quite a nice bonus. So we'll do one more pass, even though we've still got a load of paint left. There we go. Finally used it up. So we'll just dry that down. Okay, so very carefully, I'll just unmask that. Then we'll use that bit of paper. And again, with the top one. Okay, now we know this is just literally a very quick test and we've gone right the way through, but it will give you an idea on the top. So obviously everything you see down the bottom here is basically unthinned, neat from the airbrush. Now the reason I did that is because if I want to have something to look textured as in rubber, which is, let's face it, it's what we're trying to do here, I won't actually thin the paint. I used to use it neat. That way you get that nice graininess to it, a little bit of depth, and if you come along with weathering, with washes and things like that, it gives them something to grip onto them as well. So if you want them to grip onto a tyre, I would spray them neat. So hence why there's a little line you can see running down the middle here between the two. Okay, and that's obviously the overlap area between the painting. So as I said, looking at them all, spraying wise, the worn dark was a bit of a problem because it's got this flecky stuff in it and I can see it quite clearly on the surface. Okay, and also that the actual, this burned rubber was a real nightmare colour. It didn't cover particularly very well at all. The dirty black, whilst it's quite a nice colour, I don't know, you know, would you call it actually, it's more of a brown, a bit like the burnt one rather than what I would call a rubbery colour. The vinyl rubber, or the vulcanized rubber, looks very nice as well. So does this deep cockpit black colour, but again, it's more of, you know, depending on the lighting conditions, things like that, how you angle this will look more grey than black. We've got our two old favourites in the middle here, so as you can see those, obviously you've got normal XF1 flat black, done its usual thing, it's black, let's face it, you can't really see any more than that. But you've got the H77, which is this rubbery black, but it still retains, if you brush paint it, a little bit of silvering. At the top here, we've actually got them where they were brushed on, okay? So, as I said, they all covered very, very well. The one that covered exceptionally well was the actual tyre black, and that is the Lifecolor one. That covered really, really well, no problems at all, as did the deep cockpit, hand-painted exceptionally well, and the vulcanized rubber. So they all hand-painted very nicely, the Lifecolor ones, apart from this burnt rubber colour. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy this up and put some lines down it and everything else so you can see it properly, and we'll get some photos on it. But there you go, that's our quick look at black paint. Okay, so there you go, that's black paint, and as promised, here is our little sheet here. In theory, I should have a photo at this point up, but I'll tell you what, we'll do it by hand because I prefer to show it here. So if we just bring you in a little bit, you can get me and this in focus. So this is it. Now obviously, as you catch this thing on different lights, it's going to show differently, but this is that very sheet that you just saw in that video that goes through. So from your point of view there, you can probably say they're all identical, they all look lovely finish and everything else. Now, what I will say though, is spraying the Lifecolor paints for me has never been easy. As I said in the video, I've tried them before, never really got on with them. I find they have a fleck, for want of a better word. When you spray it, you see these bits come out and they seem to dry in flat, but when you feel it, I can feel it on here, you can actually feel them on the surface. So, but the trouble with that is, that was always my point to it is, and I know a lot of people will sit there at home now and going to say, well, I don't get that problem, it's you, it's because you're doing this, that and the other. but the tyre black paint doesn't have it at all. It's an absolute perfect finish. Okay, so is the worn black. It seems to be, some of the colours seem to do it more than others. Now this is a little bit dusty now and everything else, and being black it shows it up, but you can probably see here the difference is. What I do like especially about them though is when you spray them neat, they have got that real rubbery look to it. Now as I say, the flat black Tamiya one, which is sort of our base one, which is in the middle here, you can probably see it just, you know, it's black, you know, you can't really say anything about that. But when you start getting into the tyre blacks, certainly the Guns one does it, and all the others, you can see them on there. Do I think they're worth it? If you're doing a lot of rubber and things like that, absolutely. I would spray them neat. I wouldn't bother with thinner. I'd spray them neat. You get a nice texture. They seem to be quite hard wearing. They dry pretty quick, with the exception of this burnt colour. But again, once it's dry, it's there. But spraying them neat, it does seem to be, you get a far better, nicer effect. And something for like rubber, which is obviously a textured surface, to give it that rubbery look, they look a lot better, all of them to be honest, down on this bottom edge, like that. Would I switch over and start using these paints? Probably not, because I don't do enough of what I would need. I don't do rubbery type things. But if I was an armour guy and doing tracks and things like that, I can see the value in going out and buying a set like this. Because if you bought the set, it covers all the items. So their colours, they call it here, as we spoke about in there, you've got this dirty black colour. To me, doesn't work because it's brown. Okay, the vulcanised rubber. Now that is a real nice colour. That does look like it, so I can go with that. Worn black, no, that's brown, so I don't like that colour at all. The deep, what they call deep black cockpit colour, works a treat. It has that, you know, especially the RAF colours back in the 60s, jets, they all were black interior. That's a pretty good match for that, we like that. Tamiya with Skip. H77 Guns paint, I do like Guns paint purely because we spoke about, apart from their drying time, and they're probably more like an enamel than an acrylic. You know, they are very hard and everything else, and I'm still a great fan of theirs. Okay, so we can, I still like their paint. But that said, when you look at the two, this is both the tyre paints together here. This is this one and this one, which to you looks a bit more like tyre. Well, to be honest, if I'm looking at it, if I'm saying if it's a new tyre, it would be the Guns one. If I wanted an old tyre, then certainly I would actually call the Lifecolor ones. Burnt rubber, I don't know. What does burnt rubber look like? Normally on smoke. So I wouldn't know about that. But anyway, it was great to do the test. It was a lot of fun to work through and putting them up like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a still clean photo of this on the actual photo backing and everything else like that, and I'll put it on the site and a few more details exactly how it is, so you can have a look up close, because obviously on camera and everything else they never look that good. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. It was our first on test, so we've got to thank the airbrush company for fessing up the actual black paints for me to do this one. So if you need any Lifecolor paints, anything else like that, that's the company to go and see, or you can see obviously their distributors and everything else like that. But as I say, nice to do it, and next week we're going to be doing things with glue, which will be quite an interesting subject and everything else like that. So what we're going to do now is go and have a look at the forum. Now we tried this last week and everyone loved it, apart from the lip sync was a little bit out. Still haven't completely fixed that, so if I go a bit Chinesey, bad dubbing, you know what that's all about, okay? But we're going to have a look in the forum because we've got some new things started there. The big one is the Shelf of Doom, which is for all those stall projects of dusty ones we've got kicking around, which we all have everywhere, about getting those pushed through and move forward and everything else like that. And then we've got all the new SIGs and everything else is all going to start moving very, very shortly. So let's go and have a look at the forum. Okay, so here we are in the forum. So if we just have a little look down. Okay, we spoke about it before. So what we'll have a look is the group builds and how they're sort of panning out now. So at the moment, it's said we've got the transport group build, which is going on at the moment, which we saw the other day. Got until the 4th of March on that one, so we're getting pretty close to the end of that one, so you want to start moving on with that one. The bug-eyed SIG we looked at last week here, obviously we've got until the 25th of March for that one, so obviously we need to be pushing through on that one. The Harrier one, which we'll be having a look at the moment, not massive of entries, you know, we need to sort of push through on this one. Got 39 on the go, but we've only got 10 finished, so we'll be having a look at those in a moment. And then obviously we've got the self-propelled artillery and guns going on, as we were saying about that one. And then obviously Shelf of Doom, which has just started as well. So we've only got 5 in there at the moment, but obviously that only started last week. So we'll be pushing on with that one. And then obviously coming up very soon is the sponsored by Sam Magazine is the actual BF 109 SIG build. Now there's quite a lot of interest in this one, a lot of people talking about it. Obviously you've got a bit of time yet, a couple of weeks to get this sorted and put in, but there's a lot of chat going on with that one, and I'll be doing one in there as well, so big thanks to them. Okay, so moving back to the Harrier one, if we have a look at some of the final reveals. So John here has done the FRS2 Harrier. Now this is the Airfix 1/72 scale one, which, you know, for its scale and everything else is quite a nice detail kit. It's quite a modern one, so it's recessed panel lines, everything else like that. So as we can see, Fist of the Fleet, very nicely done. I don't know about this nose on there. Having known the Harrier quite well, it just looks too bulbous. You know, actually on the kit, so I don't know if an aftermarket want to come along and slim that down. Maybe just the angle it is, but it looks just a little bit too bulbous on the nose. But apart from that, great work all round. Obviously we are talking 1/72 scale, so as you said, it's very nice that Airfix are sort of doing them, but some nice intake works, masking up from the inside of the intakes and everything else like that. As you can see, it's straightforward, very nice build. Some nice decaling work on there as well, no silvering whatsoever. So well done, John, on that. Very nice to see the little Harrier in. Back up to the top. And then next we've got even smaller Harrier. Paul's done a tiny 144 GR7. This is microscopically small, okay? It's a small jet in the first place, let alone in this scale. So he's done an absolutely fantastic job on this one, as you can see as well. I don't know about these sidewinders, they just look huge and hanging out the front like that. But as you said, very nicely done on such a tiny little scale. And we won't go into the fact that it's a Lucy or Michelle's, as you can see down there. Very nice marking, so well done for that, Paul. It's great to see the tiny little scales are done as well as the big stuff as well. Okay, Alan Morris, if we're still on the small ones, tiny little ones again. So this is the Revel one, I do believe. Yeah, this is the Revel GR7 144. As I said, great little build on there, little tiny ones again. Well done, Alan. And then we've got slightly bigger AV8B VMA 214. Nice weathering on this one, so very nicely done. This is the radar equipped AV8B, so it has the longer nose up the front here. But you can see, very nicely done. Got great presence, this one. Nicely weathered overall, some nice little staining, things like that running through. But as I say, no joins, all taken care of. As you can see, there's no silvering. Very nicely done. As I say, even on the close-up work, just like that. Nice underneath as well. So I say, well done. Lovely one, that, Travis, so congratulations to him. And who else have we got? We've got GR5. Never seen many GR5s, especially in the green. So again, this is the little 1/72 one. As you can see, nice in the green. As I say, short-lived colour scheme for the RAF fleet. But very nicely done. Nice clear photos as well. So well done, Steve, on that one. Okay. GR9 in the retirement scheme. So this is Gordon's one here. Some nice camo work as well. This is the old retro wraparound camo, as we call it, that the GR fleet were given 9s for the retirement. They're all painted in different ones. So we see 1960 to 2010 for the retirement one. So if you're wondering why it's in these markings, that's why. Normally they were in the overall grey. But you can see some nice detailed shots, nice work on the intake and everything else like that. But say it's quite the classic colour scheme on a modern jet. Nice photo there. Well done, Gord. Lovely job. Okay. David's one, same jet, more modern colour scheme, as you can see. Nicely done. see, unusual colour scheme. Not sure about that colour scheme. I've never seen one where it's like that, I must admit. But as I say, it just might be me. As you can see, nice clear photos on the red again. We like that background colour. But you say no silvering, anything else like that. Little touches, just things like that. Would have been nice to see some silver down in here for the intakes. Not a bright silver, just using old gunmetal type silver, just to knock that back a little bit down on the fan blades in there. But unfortunately, if you forget about doing them in the early part of the actual build, trying to do them afterwards is a nightmare, because all that happens is you end up getting silver paint all around the inside of the intake and everything else. So I can understand why he's left it. Eric Ross's, this is another one from, which is the Aviate B2 with the longer nose on there as well. This is the VMA 214 again, but we've got the actual, it's like a CAG bird, so it's got the markings on the tail. Just shows the difference in the photographing here, where you can actually see obviously the details where you're picking up, but on the white paper, unless you get the photo balances right, it hides all this details. Lovely weathering just gets lost in here. But as I say, nice clean photos, lovely weathered, and we do like the black sheet. Nice job along the tops, right the way through. So nice weathering underneath, and then obviously on the base as well. So well done, Eric, that's a nice one. And then we have FRS 1. This is the original Sea Harrier, 800 Squadron. Now this one here has to be one of the worst kits Tamiya have ever put their name to be honest, because it really is a dog. It's raised panel lines, and from start to finish it is a complete nightmare. And this is probably the only one of the ones I've seen completed that looks half decent, because it is horrible. So you've got loads of fillers got to go in these areas in here. You've got loads in here, loads in here, loads around the top here. This top door just never fitted anywhere, any day. So to get it to all blend in is a lovely job. Downside is you do lose all the detail because it's all raised panel lining. So you're either going to do that or bite the bullet and rescribe the entire thing. And if you're going to do all of that, you might as well go off and get the Airfix kit and try and fix that, because it is not a nice kit whatsoever. To see one finished is a miracle, and to see one finished off all smooth and everything else, then that's quite something else, I'm going to say. And it amazes me that Tamiya still put their name to this actual kit and still sell it. I don't know if it's still in this year's catalogue, but if it is, they should be ashamed of themselves, because it is awful. But again, very nice work, nice clean photos, nice background, everything else like that. So we just scroll to the top, so well done Simon for that one. And then last up, another GR9. This is Bobby's one. Lovely weathering on this one. I think we spoke about briefly past this one before, but as I say, we can have a look now. Nice job on this one. Is say all the seam lines have done. Getting this to drop in down the back is always very hard. Around the front, the canopy never seems to fit on these anyway. But as you can see, it's all very nicely done, nicely weathered off, nice flat finish. It's almost got that sort of metallic look to it, as you can see, and it is very nicely done, and say on the base and everything else like that. It's absolutely lovely. So well done to him for that one. So that's it for this week, having a look around the forum. Obviously we'll be back again next week to have a look at some of your work, so until next week, happy modelling. So that's about it for this week. First thing we'll be doing next week is dusting and getting about 2 inches of dust off of models, probably. We'll be doing a tutorial on dusting models. No, so that'll be next week. I'm going to be starting a live show, so we'll do probably about sort of half hour on this one, moving it through, which is quite nice because the building work's basically done on this, so we can move through. So my first job will be to find the instructions, everything else like that, and as I say, try and get all this dust off because it's been sat on the shelf for the last 6 months, everything else like that. Join us next week because we're going to be putting glue on test, which will be a lot of fun as well, because I know a lot of people find it difficult to get Tamiya extra thin in the UK, myself included. It's still a nightmare. I've just had to get some in from the Far East. So we'll be putting some other glues on test and just seeing who's good. So anyway, until next week. Everyone, happy modelling, take care, and I'll see you soon.